Hello guys and welcome to Skholar. I am Gaurav Tiwari and I am here to take you through the ancient history for your civil services examination. So let's just get on with our first topic, that is the Stone Age and early man. Under this topic, we'll first discuss the prehistory, the proto-history, the distinction between the two, and then we'll swiftly move on to the periodic classification in the prehistoric era. Then we'll discuss about the activities which people used to carry out in the prehistoric era, and then we'll look at the gradual development in each period in the prehistoric era. So the history is divided between two parts. One is prehistory and another is proto-history. Prehistory belongs to the time before the emergence of writing. That is, we do not have any written records of this period, or if we have any written records, they have not been deciphered. In India, the prehistoric period is divided into Paleolithic, that is the old Stone Age, Mesolithic, that is the middle Stone Age, Neolithic, that is the new Stone Age, and Metal Age, which is also known as Chalcolithic Age. Out of all these four, Paleolithic Age is the longest period. So the prehistory is divided between Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic and Chalcolithic Age. Out of these, the Paleolithic is longest period, which is further divided into Lower Paleolithic Age, Middle Paleolithic Age and Upper Paleolithic Age. Paleolithic Age spanned from 5 lakh years ago till 10,000 BC, and one of the most striking feature of this period is we started making, that is the humans started making tools. It is further divided into three phases as we have studied: Lower Paleolithic, Middle Paleolithic and Upper Paleolithic. Now, what is the basis of this classification? Now is the question. So this classification is based upon the types of tools and the size of tools. Let's start with Lower Paleolithic period. In Lower Paleolithic phase, the tools were mainly hand axe, cleaver with some flakes. Now how do we come to know about these tools? We have found these tools in Tapti, Godavari, Bhima and Krishna rivers, and we have applied radiocarbon dating and dendrochronology to come at the exact period in which these two tools used to be in use, and that is how we can deduce from which period they belong. Now another thing that comes to mind is what were these tools made up of, or what was the raw material used for making these tools. So the raw material mainly used was quartzite, chert, but sometimes quartz and basalt was also used. Just keep that in mind. It's important from the point of view of your preliminary examination. They can ask one of these statements in the CTFS questions. So just keep this in mind. Let's move on to the Middle Paleolithic Age. The Lower Paleolithic culture slowly transformed into Middle Paleolithic culture by shredding some tool types. That is, the tool became smaller in Middle Paleolithic era. In comparison, the Lower Paleolithic, the tool became smaller, thinner and lighter. Now why was there a need for smaller, thinner and lighter tools? They became more handy, they became easier to carry and more usable. That is why the tools were shredded from large to small tools. Due to this, Middle Paleolithic period is also known as flake tool industries. Now what are these flake tools? Now suppose you want to make an arrowhead from a stone. So you will start craving the arrowhead from a stone by using chisel. So those part of the tools which were chiseled out will constitute the flake tools, and the arrowhead will constitute core tool. Now take note of it that flake tools are always smaller than the core tools. Now there was also significant change in the raw material used for making these tools. Siliceous rock like jasper was also used for making tools. So apart from quartz, basalt, chert, we also see the use of jasper in Middle Paleolithic Age. So let's just take a quick recap. Lower Paleolithic Age was succeeded by Middle Paleolithic Age. In this, we see the change in the types of tool used. Tools were made smaller, thinner and lighter. Due to this Middle Paleolithic period is also known as flake tool industries. And another raw material which was added apart from quartz, basalt and chert was jasper. Moving on, Upper Paleolithic Age. The tools of Upper Paleolithic era shows a refinement on the tools of Lower and Middle Paleolithic period. Now what was this refinement, students? This refinement was standardization of finished tools and techniques. Now what is this standardization? Suppose we also have standardization in cloths, like we have different sizes, small, medium and large, and all the brands produce the small size the same, medium size the same and large is same in all these brands. So this is what you understand by standardization. So this is how the standardization of tool was done, and the techniques to produce these tools was also same throughout this Upper Paleolithic age. The Upper Paleolithic settlement also showed distinct trend of being associated with permanent sources of water. That is, it is from this period that the humankind started settling besides the water sources, and it is being continued till date. We see Srinagar located on the bank of river Jhelum, Varanasi on the bank of river Ganga, and there are so many cities like Surat on the bank of river Tapi, etc. Let's move on to the next age, that is the Mesolithic Age. The transition from Paleolithic Age to Mesolithic Age is marked by favorable change in climate. Now, what were these changes in the climate that favored the Mesolithic Age? They were the climate became warmer, more humid, and there was expansion of flora and fauna contributed by increased rainfall. Now, this warm and humid climate and increased rainfall resulted in more resources that were produced by nature, which were at the disposals of human being. So, let's just take a look at the tools which were used in Mesolithic period. The Mesolithic tools were smaller in size and better in finishing. As you can see in the images on the right side, these tools are very small in size. Their size was usually 1 centimeter to 5 centimeter, and this is why they were also called microliths. Now, as you can see, the tools are so small in size that they cannot be directly used. So how they were used? They were used as a component of spearhead, arrowhead, knives and sickles. They were fitted into the grooves in bones. That is, grooves मतलब एक होल किसी बोन में करके आप उसे वहां फिट कर देते हैं, एंड वुड में कहीं आप थोड़ा सा उसको होल करके फिट कर देते हैं, या फिर नेचुरल एडेसिव्स, यू यूज नेचुरल एडेसिव्स लाइक गम एंड रेजिन्स, एंड दिस इज हाउ इट the whole part used to be produced, that is, which comprised of these bones and woods and these microliths. The use of bone arrow for hunting has been documented by the Mesolithic man in rock art of that period. That is, the use of bone, and we can see the images of man using images, not exactly images, but the paintings of man using the bow and arrow for hunting in the Mesolithic art. That was the prevalent art of Mesolithic period. Now, what were the changes in life in this Mesolithic era? Let's look at them one by one. The first was domestication of animals. Second was nomadism to settle life. Third was its culture. That is, there started evolving new traditions like burying the dead. And third is its art. Let's look at it one by one. So first is domestication of plants and animals. Mesolithic people relied on hunting, fishing and food gathering. They started the practice of agriculture, but it was not fully developed. Now, one thing to take note of here, students, is that agriculture was not invented. It was discovered. So, few knew partially what was agriculture, and few didn't know at that time what agriculture was. That is why we say that agriculture was not fully developed. They started cultivating wheat, barley, and with time they started producing rice. With favorable, we came across the changes that the climate saw in this Mesolithic period, and that favored the production of rice. So now, with the practice of agriculture, they came across the need to secure their land through which they used to produce their rice, wheat, barley and all these agricultural harvests. So with this, they developed the practice of domesticating animals, and the first to be domesticated were dog, cattle, sheep and goat. Now again, there's one thing to be noted here, that whenever we hear the word agriculture in the ancient history, or that is the prehistoric times, we attribute it to a settled life, because you cannot just abandon an agricultural land and move to somewhere else without harvesting your produce. So that is why agriculture always attributed to a settled and sedentary life, that is, having less activities than agriculture. So the second point, now comes the second point, that is nomadism to a sedentary settlement. Favorable climate change, better rainfall, warmer atmosphere increased the food security. This led to reduction in nomadism. They used to roam around here and there in search of food, as they were hunters and gatherers. But with development of agriculture, they started living a settled life. And with food security, with increase in production, the population also increased, because they had more food at their disposal. Less mouths to feed. With more food, they started producing agriculture. They moved to a new area such as nearby river, which provided water for their agricultural activities as well as for their daily purposes. The first colonization of Gangetic Plain took place during this period. Disposal of dead and making graves was another striking feature of this Mesolithic period. Settlement led to the beginning of a tradition of various ways. Like when you start living in a community, the community starts developing its own traditions. One of this tradition which this period witnessed was disposing their dead in the graves. Mesolithic human burials have been found for the first time in Begor, Rajasthan and Bhimbetka in MP. In some cases, the two individuals were buried in a single grave. This was called double burial. The dead were occasionally provided with grave offerings like meat and tools. They were buried with meat and tools, so we can just inculcate that they believe in afterlife. Why somebody would be buried with meat or tools if they didn't believe in afterlife? They would have believed that dead can carry the meat and eat whenever they felt hungry, and tool for their security. So that is how we came to this conclusion. Fourth is the Mesolithic art. Mesolithic man was art lover. Evident from the painting found at Bhimbetka. See, I've been to Bhimbetka. The paintings are mainly made in red and white pigments, and they have survived since the Mesolithic period till today, and they are almost intact. There's nothing, कोई change इसमें अभी तक नहीं आया है. ये अभी तक वैसी की वैसी है, and it is this Bhimbetka is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and one of the most famous ones because you see all the three phases. This is the Paleolithic, Neolithic, and Mesolithic phase here. That is why it is very important from your exams point of view. So they used to perform rock art in the rock shelter and natural caves. That is, where they used to reside, and wherever they found natural caves, they used to make drawings and paintings. So let's just revise what we have studied in this Mesolithic culture. They started practicing domestication of animals. Why they started domestication of animals? Because they started producing food and they felt the security and they felt the need to secure their land and their produce. And who were the first animals to be domesticated? They were cattle, dog, sheep, buffalo. They started living a nomadism to a settled life. Now since they started practicing agriculture, they started living a settled life, because one cannot abandon their agricultural land and move to here and there. Apart from this, whenever there is a practice of agriculture, they start living a settled life. This is what we have discussed. Apart from that, they used to roam around here and there in search of food, and when they got a stable source of their food, that is the land, they started living a settled life. They used to dispose their dead into graves. Sometimes two bodies were buried in a single grave, and that is what we call double burial. Dead were occasionally provided with grave offerings like meat and tools. So we can say that probably they believed in afterlife, but we are not sure because we do not have any written records. And this is what prehistory is all about. Now another striking feature and the most important one is Mesolithic art. Mesolithic man was art lover. We have found paintings at Bhimbetka. They were in red and white pigments. They were mostly comprised of hunting scenes. So let's move on to Neolithic Age. Remarkable progress is noticed in human civilization in Neolithic Age. This happened as a result of increase in efficiency in food production. So as the food production increased, as the society became food surplus, many of the people took a break from this agricultural activities and started investing their time in some other activities. This transition from a hunting gathering society to a food producing society is what we call Neolithic revolution. Now whenever students we hear the word revolution, it is marked by lots and lots of striking changes that the society witnesses, like the Industrial Revolution or the Green Revolution or the current digital revolution. This is where the society sees many changes in how the things used to carry out. So let's get on with our Neolithic revolution and look at the changes that the society witnessed during this revolution. There was a great improvement in technology of making tools. Tools were now polished. So the tool making took a new stage, that is the polished tools came into the use. Mud brick houses were built instead of grass hut. There was wheel used in the pottery. There were improvement in agriculture. Wheat, barley, rice, millet were cultivated in different points and different spaces. People of Neolithic Age used cloth made up of cotton and wool. So these were some striking changes that the Neolithic Revolution witnessed. So let's just take a quick recap of this Neolithic Age. Remarkable progress made in the human civilization. And what was this remarkable progress? We became a food surplus society. And as we became a food surplus society, many people took a break from this agricultural activities and started doing other activities. And this transition from hunting gathering to a food producing society is known as Neolithic Revolution. And what were the other changes that this revolution witnessed? These were stone tools were now polished. Mud brick houses were built instead of grass hut. Wheel were used to make pottery. There were also improvement in agriculture, like wheat, barley, rice and millet were cultivated at different points of times and in different areas. People of Neolithic Age used cloth made up of cotton and wool. Now another important thing that to note is Mehergarh. Mehergarh culture, sometimes it is often called. Mehergarh is the oldest agricultural settlement in the Indian subcontinent. It is from here we get the idea of Neolithic Age. It is currently in Pakistan. After Neolithic came the Chalcolithic Age. This Chalcolithic Age is also known as Metal Age. This is the age when the copper and bronze came into the use. Now copper is a metal and bronze is an alloy. Bronze is an alloy made up of copper and tin, and copper was the first metal to be used. The earliest settlement of the Chalcolithic period in India ranges from Gangetic Basin to the Chota Nagpur Plateau. Now when we look at copper and bronze, we think how they would have made bronze from two metals. So they must have known the technology of smelting metal ores and crafting metal clay. Exactly. So this became an important development in human civilization. That is smelting metal ore and crafting metal artifacts. As you can see in the image, these are all copper and bronze artifacts. They are made from smelting metal ores. Now, how this metal used to be obtained? People used to travel long distances to obtain this metal, and when they used to travel to long distances, they developed a network in this Chalcolithic culture, and this Chalcolithic culture was now found in many parts of the Indian subcontinent. Most importantly, the Harappan culture is considered as a part of Chalcolithic culture. This Chalcolithic culture mixed with Indus Valley and gave birth to the first civilization. So let's just take a quick recap of this Chalcolithic Age. Neolithic Age was followed by Chalcolithic Age. The most striking development in this Chalcolithic Age was metal and smelting metal into new artifacts. Bronze was the first alloy to be used. It is made up of two metals, copper and tin. Copper was the first metal to be used. People began to travel long distance to obtain these metal ores to produce these metal artifacts. So as they traveled long distances, a culture developed which was found in many parts of India. Harappan culture is considered as a part of Chalcolithic Age. So as they traveled, they developed a culture, and this culture developed into a civilization that was the Indus Valley civilization. And this was the first civilization that the world witnessed. So let's take up a few questions from this part. Which among the following are the features of Mesolithic era in India? First, earliest cultivation of crop, earliest domestication of animals, first human colonization of Gangetic Plain in India. Choose the correct option from the following codes given below. So take up a few seconds and try to analyze what are the correct options. So you can just pause the video, I'll get to the answer. All of the above. D. The earliest cultivation of the crops was the main feature of Mesolithic period. Earliest domestication of animals and the settlement of colonization. See, the agriculture was partially developed, but the cultivation of crops was earliest in Mesolithic period. Let's just take up another question, MCQ. Which among the following are the hallmark feature of Neolithic revolution? A transition from hunting gathering to a food producing society. Transition from plenty of use of copper to iron, rise of domestication of various plants, animals. So again, option D is the correct answer, because we can just solve this question by elimination method. That is, the use of copper was witnessed in Chalcolithic Age and not Neolithic Age. Rest were witnessed in Neolithic revolution. So that's all from today. I hope you understood all the points. Thank you.